Jeez, what time is it?
Yo, dude, wake up and get out of bed. Yo, dude, wake up and get out of bed. Yo, dude,
Shut
wake
up!
Oh! Who are you?
Mountain biking is one of the world's most popular participation sports, but not everyone is satisfied with a poodle around the park on a Sunday afternoon. Some need the buzz of adrenaline coursing through their veins, so get off those smooth paths and tracks and find something to really test your skills. Get down to some serious riding and learn how to ride like a mountain bike god.
Come on!
Fancy a surefire, fast and easy way to improve your mountain biking skills while eating chips and drinking Coke on the sofa? Then hold tight as Team Giant show the quick way to downhill nirvana. Global racing team stars Rob Warner, Miles Rockwell, Jürgen Beneke, and UK riders Lewis King, Mark Davis and Crawford Carrick Anderson give us the inside line on everything from kit to cornering and show you how to get down the big hills fast and safe. Team MB UK's Will Longdon gives a jumping masterclass and shows us not only how to get the big air you want, but how to come back to earth safely. And finally, the rest of Team MB UK take us through the skills and tactics you'll need on the dual course to get you across the finish line first. So whether you're stuck on bunny hopping curbs or need that extra something to give you the edge over your mates whilst ripping it up on your local trails, sit tight and enjoy the action. And you'll find the answers to all your riding questions. "20 years ago, when Gary Fisher and the other mountain bike pioneers invented the sport, downhilling was the only game in town. Today, once again, downhilling is the fastest growing part of mountain biking, and thousands of riders, young and old, have been seduced by its heady mix of speed and adrenaline.
No, it's just an excellent feeling when you get here and ride down a steep course like that and get to the bottom and you've done it. You just can't beat that feeling, really. Just to get down without falling off and killing yourself, that's enough for me.
It's addictive, it's good fun, can't fault it.
You sort of start off slow and you think, yeah, I did that a bit faster. And you think, yeah, I did it a bit faster, and you fall off. And then you think, damn, you're going to do it again, you know?
Again with my helmet. Oh no, I've got a bit of tree blood.
You do get to meet a lot of people. And you make a lot of friends.
It's a really good laugh. You sort of get to know people pretty well, and they sort of become your friends as well. So it's good to come away and sort of go out for a beer.
There's massive parties, like it's excellent, and you get to mix with all the pros and everything, which is good, because most sports you don't get to talk to them and they really help you out.
It's an instant buzz. There's nothing on earth that can touch that. It's better than sex in some ways.
Hi. If you have a mountain bike, it probably looks a lot like this right here. It's made mostly for touring or cross-country racing. This bike features a long stem, flat handlebars, which brings your center of gravity a little bit more forwards than on the bike we're going to talk about later. The pedals are also made for cross-country. They're pretty lightweight and very small. The front suspension is a RockShox short travel, which gives you about 3 inches of travel. We have a pretty lightweight setup here with thin wall tires and also very narrow rims. They're not necessarily made for jumping off cliffs and stuff, so they're strictly cross-country. If you want to step up your level of downhilling, I suggest you start looking for something like this right here. If you look at it right away, the biggest difference is the position is a lot more upright and your center of gravity is a lot further back over the rear wheel, which makes it a lot easier if you start heading downhill. You're in a natural position for going downhill on this bike. One of the biggest differences compared to the cross-country bike is the weight. This bike's mostly designed to withhold all the jumps and the landings and be strong enough not to break apart when we hit something hard. The downhill pedals are a lot bigger than the cross-country pedals. They're surrounded by a cage which protects the pedal and also makes it a lot easier to find your pedal. The front suspension is a triple clamp RockShox, which gives you about 7 inches of travel, which gives you a pretty smooth ride. The wheels are a lot like motorcycles these days. They're equipped with disc brakes, and also we have very strong and heavy sidewall tires, which should prevent any flats. As far as your kit goes, you should try to use as much protective gear as possible. We start from the bottom. We have some knee pads, which is pretty important because your knee is probably always the first thing going on the ground. Then we got some pants over that, which will pretty much just protect you from rashing your skin open when you crash and slide. Gloves, if you do fall, so you can hold yourself up and keep your face from smashing into the ground. Elbow, shoulder pads, and most importantly, I think, is a full face helmet, which can really save your life.
You alright, Tom? Yeah.
It's important to be at the peak of physical fitness. 20 seconds in and I'm burned. That's without pedalling.
If you're serious about improving your bike handling skills, then you're going to have to get a few basics right. Downhill mountain biking is all about being well balanced and having the correct stance on your bike. Jürgen shows you how.
You got to know which is the right stance for you. You got to find out which one is your stronger leg, which is, in my case, it's the right leg, so I make sure that the right pedal is in front. Also, you always want to have at least one finger on the brake. You always want to be able to slow down and brake and be in control.
Mainly you need to try and be balanced over the centre of your bike, keep the bike in good balance. And then it comes down to, you know, with practice you'll find out, you know, sometimes you want to weight the front wheel, sometimes you need to weight the rear wheel.
The basic balance position would be if I get off my seat and kind of like position myself between the wheels, so there's not any off balance as far as more weight in the front wheel or more weight in the rear wheel. If I would go downhill now, everything would change automatically. You don't want to have more weight in the front wheel than in the rear wheel. So I just shift my body backwards. There's not really a limit for that. You can go all the way down to the rear tire, put the seat in your chest. I mean, it really depends on how steep you're going downhill. For this kind of grade, I think I'm about at the right point now. And the third part of the balance would be being loose in your knees and your arms and trying to absorb bumps and little obstacles so that you're always in touch with the ground and you never lose control, and you're pretty much safe to, you know, rock and roll.
The big heavy guys probably don't have to pedal quite as much if they're riding smooth. When you lose momentum, it's harder to build it again, but when you have it, you have an advantage over the light guys.
You got time when you pedal though. You can't pedal this like top to bottom or you'll be exhausted.
Yeah, strategic pedaling. God, you gotta be fit to pedal for 5 minutes.
Everyone's now so fit and fast through technical stuff that they pedal and do technical stuff good. So I probably need to pedal a bit more. But I'm working on it. I've been working on it since about 93, but we're slowly getting it.
Rob don't like to pedal, he just likes to pump.
I like pumping.
I love the pump too. When you pump, I don't know, you go from the middle to the back of the bike. You use more of the rear wheel than the front. You just you generate most of your power out of the rear wheel, I think.
Here it's particularly obvious, and there's 3 bumps there. The first you can really pump, and you just push down on the backside really hard. Let the bike rise up in and force it back down the backside, and then that way you produce more speed. BMX tracks are a great place to learn how to pump as well. There's a lot of natural rolling jumps that you can pump, so, you know, there's no excuse for not doing it really.
There's pretty much no rules about how hard can you brake. You can pretty much pull as hard as you want until it locks up. The most important part is don't forget to shift your body weight. Don't be in a neutral position and hit your front brake hard, because you're probably going to end up flipping over the bars.
The main thing is to ride, you can control yourself, you know, especially as you're learning, and then you won't need to go panicking on the brakes.
You can lean really far forward on the front wheel with the front brake on because the tire's gripping so much. And then other times, you just have to be all the way back. You get that? Too much front brake.
You definitely don't want the front wheel to be too heavy. You know, you're going down anyway, and you know, if you've got the weight on the front too much, you're going to be arse over tit. Mainly I use my rear brake to keep my balance in turns, or if I'm slightly offline, I'll just dab it and it'll drag me back online.
I would say front brake is, you know, 90% of the slowing down part, and the rear brake is just pitching the bike left and right, and also, you know, supporting the slowing down.
People like to have it sliding, don't they, and have big rocks fly everywhere, but they don't really get you anywhere. Wears your tyres out, that's about all it does. Remember the countryside code. Take any pictures, leave any tyre prints. There's definitely a lot more to racing the downhill than people probably think. You don't just turn up and get to the top and pedal down it. I mean, generally we'll get there a day before even practice starts. and just walk the course.
Generally, I walk the course before I ever ride it. I don't want to crash on the stupid sections that I haven't looked at before. So I walk it, and then I take a couple of slow runs, and then I try to pick up the speed.
Walking the course is crucial. That one walk of the course you can do is probably worth 5 practice runs.
I always walk the course. I don't learn anything from riding it really. On a national, I probably walk the course 6 or 7 times in the weekend.
I'll get there and I'll walk the course the day before practice starts. And then generally you try and aim to walk it later in the week as well. You practice it for 3 or 4 days. Depends how it's going, you know, if the course is like easy, a fast technical course. But if it's slow technical and there's a lot to look at and a lot of lines, then you definitely need to walk it. The trouble is when you're riding the course and practicing all week, you can become completely oblivious to anything else other than the line you're riding. You walk the course half the time and you're like, oh God, look at that, and oh no, look what I've missed. And you can see like 5 seconds here and a couple of seconds there or whatever. Sometimes I don't ride well at all until I've walked the course and really put everything in my head.
When you're walking the course, you just stand back from the course. And do you know what I mean? You walk back from your rut, and you just find something on the ground or maybe just in front on a tree or something to aim for.
You just make a note in your mind. You've got to go to that tree, or that twig to that twig. You've got to keep an eye on the track because you know you're riding over it and you want to go across the ground as fast as you can.
By the time it gets to my run, I know every single route, every corner, everything on that course. I know exactly. If there's bits that you know there's nothing dangerous there, you know you can just hit it as flat out as you can.
When you're racing, you know, you're always looking at the lines every day just to make sure they're the same.
Knowing your lines, that's the quickest way to make up time. You go to some of the races and they're like sheep, just follow each other all the way down. And then you look at the top blokes and they've all got their own little lines here and there. They might not be the same lines, but different lines work better for different people.
You can do it maybe with a buddy of yours, just if you follow him and he's taking a different line than you, and if you roll up to him or you pass him, I mean, you're definitely going to be on a faster line then.
In the beginning, it's always scary. My first run down the track, I was feeling like a girl, so I was using the brakes instead of trying to get more speed.
90% on a downhill, we just take the straight line, because you have to, you know, it's the quickest way as the bird flies.
What we're looking at here is basically you've got a corner, you've got some rocks, and you've got an inside and an outside line. And the difference is only about 2 feet. You have to have a little more discipline to make yourself go to the outside because it seems like the long way around the corner. This is flat right here. And if you blow this turn on the inside, you have no speed for the next 20 meters. In the end, it's going to be probably more consistent to go to the outside and make sure you got your speed so you don't have to do all your turn at one spot.
You got to be able to change your focus from close, right in front of your wheel, to far away. So you know what is in front of your wheel, like a loose rock, boulder, root. Or is there a turn coming up, a drop-off coming up? So you never really lose the focus on, you know, what's going to happen soon to my bike and to me.
The drop on the left isn't so hard actually, it's not so high, but we're on a steep piece of ground, so you're coming over it and it's quite a steep little drop. So a lot of people take the right-hand line there, which is a wiggle around, does away with the steepness, but obviously is load slower. You know, you're doing 2 or 3 turns, you're not really gaining anything. We tend to just bomb straight off the drop.
You know, when you feel the smoothness, that's when you're already 2 turns ahead. It's like you're not even trying, it's just happening.
When you are riding well, and then you're right on it, and then generally you feel like this big and berm's this big, do you know what I mean? And you're just, nothing's going to go wrong for you and you can't make a mistake. And when you can get to that level, that's when you're on form. Because of the extreme physical exertion I go through when I race my mountain bikes, I work with a very select field of dietitians to make sure my body gets exactly what it needs. Beautiful.
One of the most common features of downhill courses is the drop-off. If you don't know how to control your bike when the ground suddenly falls away, you're toast.
A drop-off is strictly a downwards motion of the bike. It's pretty much just a straight falling. The trail kind of like levels or stops at an edge and then it drops down immediately. So you don't want to be up here and do the technique of a jump or a bunny hop. You gain more height than you already have because all you want to do is get safely from this level to the next level down. So you want to make sure that your wheel kind of like makes this imaginary straight line, like the trail would keep going and continue. And then the rear wheel would just drop down and both wheels in the same time touch the ground, and you will be under control and roll away.
In a racing situation with drop-offs, you really just want to get the bike back on the ground as soon as you can. And normally as you leave the ground, you'll go real low over the bike, so the bike comes up under you to absorb the takeoff, and then you'll just push the bike straight down as you leave the ground, so you're straight back on the ground and back in control, so you can brake or pedal or do whatever you want to do. And there's no point just launching off drop-offs unless there's a backside somewhere that you want to make. You know, if you've got a nice backside that you can pump and get some speed off, then go for that. Basic errors a beginner will make on a drop-off is they might go off it too slow, and if you haven't got any speed, then obviously your bike's just going to nosedive and you can have an accident like that. You want to come off it and you want both wheels, as a general rule, to land at the same time, really, which means, you know, hanging off the back a little bit probably.
It's easy.
As far as cornering goes, it's really important to have the inside pedal up and the outside pedal down, so you don't start scraping your pedal into the ground or getting high-sided off it or clipping the ground. You want to not sit on your seat. You want to be balancing between the wheels again, and then push your bike into the corner. You don't want to be one with the bike. You want to let the bike move away from your body a little bit. Try to push it so far that it almost starts sliding and kind of balance it on the edge of the tires.
You've got to pick a nice line that's going to enable you to keep your momentum up through the turn. The outside apex is pretty much the go. You want to be nice and smooth, come in fast and leave fast, and generally that is taking the line that's already there.
As far as braking for turn goes, you have to do all your braking before you even get to the turn. You want to slow down enough so you can carry the same amount of speed around the turn. You don't want to have to brake much in the turn, and if you have to, you should only use your rear brake so you don't wipe out.
You've got to make sure that you're positive and confident about making the turn 100%. You know, you've got to know that you're going to be on line. You need to look where you're going a long way in front. It's no good looking at the front tyre. You get all your weight on the outside pedal and force the edges of the tyre, push them into the ground, and make sure you've got enough weight over the front. And that's what a lot of people will fail with, because if the front slides, it's all over.
You got to have a focal point of where you're going to make your move, where you're going to transition from going straight to turning right. And, you know, it's just really important to look ahead and see where the actual turn is going to happen.
Some riders like to keep their feet firmly on the pedals. Others hang off the bike with their inside foot ready to dab the ground if it all gets too sketchy.
Most of the riders will be feet up these days, mainly because, you know, you can get on the power out of the turn, you've got more control, and normally quite often it's so steep that, you know, if your foot's out, then it is difficult just to ride. Any time we do tend to ride, feet off, 1 foot off, is on fast open turns that are loose.
Anything that forms a bank behind a corner, either naturally or man-made, can be called a berm. These stop the bike sliding out, so you can use them to turn off or reduce speed to help you corner better.
It's a little bit of a berm at the bottom, so it's kind of natural to go out there because you got something to push off of. Once you get to the turn part, you have to let off the brakes in order to kind of, you know, push into the dirt, carry speed out of the corner.
It's quite an easy turn, really. It doesn't matter if it's loose, you're going to slide, but there's such a nice rut and berm there. You bounce out of it without losing too much speed, so it's not critical. It's quite a nice open sort of corner where you can just let go a little bit.
More and more on English tracks, especially we're finding a lot of big man-made berms. They're quite good fun to ride. You can take them really fast. They're the easiest kind of turns to do. Make sure you never get too high on the berm. If you get too high, you know, there's always a danger that if it does slide, you ain't got anywhere to go except out the top. Make sure your speed again is you know, you're as quick as you know you're as quick as you're going to get around it as you come in, which will come from doing it 10 times maybe before you find out just how quick you are going to get around it. Make sure that your weight's on the outside of the bike, pushing it down into the turn, and basically just work up to a speed you're comfortable with.
Bomb holes and compressions are simply dips in the ground, but if you don't know how to control your bike through them, you're going to eat it.
The hairy part about a compression is the G-forces, that once you hit the compression, the actual ditch, when the suspension bottoms out and it's just sitting in the suspension and it kind of throws you back. It's pretty much all about not getting thrown left or right or back or something, just being able to squat down and go straight through the compression and not getting thrown off the bike.
They're all the same principle. There's always ruts in the bottom. Just picking the right rut and using the right body movement through it. What you do is you pick a point on the last bit before the bomb hole. I know whether it's a tree in the background or a blade of grass or a rock. You aim for that, so you know if you hit that, you're going to go in, you're going to hit the rut that you want. But as you come into it, obviously the bike's going to go really light as the ground's dropping away from you. And you're trying to get the bike to stick to that ground as much as you can. You're going to hit the bottom and the bike's going to compress. And as you come out the other side, it's all going to spring up and it's going to try and throw you over the bars. As the bike's compressing, you're going up with your body to get as much room between you and the bike itself. And as the bike comes up, you then can bring your body down into it and try and compress as much of that rebound as you can.
Whatever the weather, if you ride off-road, then you're going to have to smooth out some gnarly terrain, including rocks in all shapes and sizes and those most tricky of obstacles, tree roots.
Rocks are really common now, especially on World Cup races abroad. You want to be light over them, pick your lines, try not to hit the square edge ones that are going to give you punches. They can definitely slow you down if you hit a load of rocks hard, you just all your speed's gone. And you'll see a lot of riders preload and bounce over them and then they're skipping all the rough parts.
When you have to ride the roots, you've just got to try and be as light and as smooth as you can. Even in the summer, you keep banging on the roots. The moisture comes up through and they're just slippy all the time.
If you've got a load of roots on a camber coming along, instead of just trying to ride across them, you need to push down before them and then ride up and make like an arc, so that at least you've got some weight to carry across them.
It's so easy just to hit a root and the front wheel will go or the back wheel will go, and then all the time you've made up on the top part of the course, you've lost on the roots.
It's easy normally to go over roots faster than it is slow. The longer you spend on them, the more chance the bike's got to slide in. Sometimes I won't even touch them. If possible, I'll jump and preload over them, just go light over them.
If you've got to use a brake, feather the back brake. Just don't touch the front brake, because obviously braking on wood, you're gone. Time again.
Riding in the wet, I mean, it's just something you really got to learn about. It comes really naturally to me. Living in England, it's gonna. Most English riders haven't got a problem with it, you know. You've got to be very loose on your bike, be very relaxed. You've got to let the thing slide. You got to know how to control the slide, to back stepping out. Then you want to be able to have all your weight on the front to stop the front going, because if the front goes as well, you're going to crash. If you are riding on wet routes, it's actually easier normally to go across them fast and slow. Don't be scared of them as well, you need to be confident and know that you're going to get across them.
When it's steep like this, there's not a lot you can do. If you ain't controlled it, that's it, you're straight on at the bottom. There's no tips for that. You're going to slide on like slatted rocks and stuff, so you just pumping your brakes a bit, letting it off slightly if it's going to feel like it's skidding, and then back on as soon as you can. Start skidding again, let off again.
You just need to know exactly what your wheels are going to do. Are you going to get a grip or aren't you, you know? Sometimes I'll aim for the rocks in the muddy section because they're going to be grippier than the mud in between. When it's raining, I'm a lot more aggressive, really push a lot harder. The Americans aren't so good in the mud because when it's raining, they simply don't practice and just pray that it's sunny on race day. I love riding in the wet. That to me that's the best.
To prevent sports injuries, there's nothing I like more after a hard day's riding than a professional sports massage. Oh, baby. Shagadelic. Oh, baby.
It's important that you know how to bunny hop, so you can clear like stumps or big rocks or something that you don't necessarily want to hit. I have a little practice routine that breaks it up in 2 steps to bunny hop. The first one would be to pretty much preload everything and get your weight on the rear wheel without actually doing the real bunny hop. And that looks like this. Once you have all your weight on the rear wheel, explode off the rear wheel and push your handlebars away from your body and complete the bunny hop. It would look something like this. And that's pretty much all there is to it.
You definitely need jumping skills. Plus, it's about the most fun you can have on a mountain bike as well. To start jumping here, you definitely work on something small. You definitely don't want to start launching yourself at 25-foot gaps. Just work your way up. Don't be mad. There ain't no evil Knievels.
Although getting big air is great for showing off to your mates, when you're downhill racing, you don't want to be wasting precious time flying high.
It's quite an awkward jump because it's so short and takeoff's quite steep. So you don't over jump it and flat land down in a turn there, which obviously you need to be in control for. You have to just suck it out with your arms on the takeoff and absorb the takeoff with your arms. So on a little jump like that, you just need to totally absorb the bike and let the bike ride right up into you, and then put the bike back down on the backside. So you stay nice and low and then just push the backside to make more speed. And also then, with a turn after it, you're in control for the corner as well. You just want to stay as low and in control as you can, and I say it's too easy to overjump a little jump like that. They're actually harder than the big ones for me. Oh, yeah. I think the wind might have caught me then. That was... Don't use that one. That was not the shot. You need to be able to hit jumps flat out and not be worried about what's going to happen, you know. You don't want to lose no time braking for any jump, so you might want to be able to suck it up. Or sometimes you might need a lift to make the thing go further if it's got, you know, the backside of the jumps 40 foot away. 40 feet? Don't know if we jump that far or not, actually. You'd be the man to jump 40 feet. Sounds good on the video. Just put it, run it.
We've got a little section here where there's a nice option. We've got a little bit of a blind turn. This bush here blocks the vision of this little drop off. And I think a lot of times that it's easier to just come up to this and just like dead weight, fall off of it. But I think personally it's better for me to use this little lip and just to jump across and land on this little backside. 30 yards down the track, I'm gonna be going faster after landing off this jump because my weight's gonna come down. I'm gonna get a good pump off this transition. And furthermore, it's more fun.
You'll never cut it with the big boys if you don't know how to jump. So if you're not already confident flying through the air, watch this lesson from Will Longdon. He's a big fan of putting some space between his wheels and the ground, and he'll show you how to jump like a pro.
The pain's coming, it's nearly here. If you want to progress in mountain biking, the most important thing you need to learn is how to jump. You don't want to start off on something this size, so let's go take a look at something smaller. Every jump has a takeoff with a lip and a landing. Although this may look like a big jump, it's quite a good place to start because it's a tabletop, which means as you progress and learn to jump, you can jump further and further across the top of the jump until eventually you learn to jump all the way from the takeoff to the landing. First of all, we're going to roll the jump. That way we can get a feel for the takeoff and the lip and the landing. As you're approaching the jump, you want to keep your speed constant, and as you get near the bottom of the jump, you need to think about not braking. It's a common mistake. People get to here and they think they're going too fast. What they forget is that because there's an upslope, they're going to be slowing down. So you need to commit yourself to the jump and get ready now as you come into the bottom of the jump to compress your body weight into the bottom of the jump. So as you come to take off, you're slowly unweighting your body and unweighting the bike so your front wheel leaves the lip and you become airborne. It really is important to remember to compress in the bottom and bring your body weight up so you're weightless, because that's what's going to get you up and over the jump. As you do this, you've got to remember that you are still riding the bike. If you get to this point here and freeze, you'll end up in a big heap on the floor. So you really need to remember you're still riding the bike when you're up in the air. You need to be thinking now about coming into land. And the first time you jump, you're probably going to land on the flat. So you want to land slightly onto your back wheel and then onto your front wheel. While your bike's doing this, your body wants to start off fairly straight and then compress to take the landing, because even though your bike's got suspension, it's flat and it's going to be a heavy landing if you don't compress it and take it in with your body. Once you've learned to land on the top and you've become competent at that, it's time to think about landing on the downslope. There's a lot of advantages to this. If you land on the downslope, you'll carry your speed onto the next obstacle better than you will if you land on the flat and slow the whole bike down. When you get to this point here, your body's going to be light and your bike's going to be starting to come up. It's going to start off at this sort of angle, the same angle as a takeoff, and then you want to be thinking about pushing the bars up and forwards, which will bring the bike horizontal to this angle. And then just push slightly more, send the front of the bike tilts down, so it's the same sort of angle as the downslope. You'll speed off the downslope and be away to the next obstacle. Once you've learnt the basics on a tabletop, you can pretty much jump anything. This is a double, but it's still got a takeoff, a lip, and it's still got a landing. The only difference is it hasn't got a flat bit in the middle, so you've got to clear it. If you can get over the psychological barrier, then you can really start to have some fun.
racing is the fastest growing discipline in mountain biking today. Riders race down large-scale BMX courses with a mass of jumps and berms. There are virtually no rules and full-on contact is just part of the game. Duel is all about head-to-head racing over huge obstacles, where tactics play as big a part as showing off to the crowd.
Dual bike differs slightly from the other bikes. This is the downhill bike. Nice strong frame, 7 or 8 inches of suspension travel, and the gear system from real high gears for the fast stuff down to a lot lower gears for the slower technical sections. Real strong bike, but probably not what you'd want to use for the dual.
This is dual suspension dual bike. It's probably got 3 or 4 inches of travel front and rear. A lot lighter frame. It doesn't need to be quite so sturdy as the downhill because you're not going to be going over rocks and everything like that. The seat can be quite low because you're not doing that much pedalling. It's only a 30-second track. Disc brakes, they're smaller than the downhill bike because you're not going to be doing as much braking. The gears, a lot closer ratio because you want your pedalling to be smoother. Finally, the pedals can be the same as what you use on a downhill bike, SPDs, but you can also use flat pedals as well. The other choice for dual racing is the hardtail.
As you can see, it's got no rear suspension and it's got the single crown forks at the front. The brakes are normal cantilever brakes rather than the disc brake. This is a really lightweight bike, almost a big BMX bike really, just used on courses which are really smooth or really technical when you need to be able to throw the bike around. These are your choices, it's up to you to take your pick.
Even though dual's supposed to be non-contact sport, contact is inevitable, so you have to wear protective gear. To start off with, you have the body armour, which you wear underneath your race kit. If you don't want to be quite so restricted or if the weather's quite warm, then you can wear separates. These are the elbow pads that you wear, and then you wear a similar thing on your knee and shins. You then have gloves, which you would wear when you ride your bike at any point, really. These, again, just protect your hands and cover your knuckles. I usually wear a full-face helmet. If I am going to come off, then I know that I'm going to be protected in every way. A lot of people prefer an open-face helmet. This gives a lot more visual awareness, so you can see riders coming up alongside you. Finally, we have the race trousers, which just stops any slight abrasions if you do come off. Then you have your race jersey, which displays all your sponsors as well. And that's about it. Now, all you need is a bike.
Once you've chosen which bike you're going to use for dual, there's 1 or 2 different things you can do to set it up and make it work the best for you. Starting off with the forks, I use a dual crown fork. I tend to run my forks fairly hard for dual. It prevents them from diving when you land from a jump, and it also helps with sprinting because your forks are set up just that little bit harder and prevents them from bobbing. Again, with the back end, the rear suspension, I would run it almost so it's just a little bit of give rather than a real plush suspension feel. It gives you a little bit of comfort if you land a little bit short on a jump. With the pedals, you can either run an SPD pedal like that, where your feet are clipped into the pedal with your shoe, or you can run the flat pedal. I tend to run the SPD sort of most of the time. It helps me get out the gate quicker and put power through the pedals. Also, coming out of berms, I can get more power down. The seat height on the bike is the next thing that needs to be looked at. On a downhill bike, you would probably run it a little bit higher. For dual, I like to have it right down, right out of the way. Basically, it's for sitting on at the start and the finish. You don't want it hitting you in the behind when you're landing from a jump. So basically, as low as you can get it, right out the way. Another thing to look at is the tyres. On my dual bike, I tend to run them fairly hard, especially on a hard packed track like this. It helps the grips to work really well. And also, some dual courses are grass. And if it's wet grass, you want to run a spike tyre. That's how I like to set my bike up. I'm now ready to go riding.
William Longdon, specialist subject, the bleeding obvious.
If you get a good gate, you could win. If you don't, you won't. Here we are at the start gate. It's a really important part of the race. In fact, it's the most important. If you get a good gate and you're way in front of the other rider, holding all the best lines,
and he's got to make a considerable effort to try and get back past you. If you arrive at the gate, the first thing you need to think about is what gear you're in. A geezer? A real nice geezer. But you don't like him because you've got a race against him. No, I'm not ready! If you have too easy a gear, and you're going to set off quick, but straight away you're going to run out of speed. If you have too hard a gear, you're going to be pushing too hard and you're going to be too slow out the gate. You need to find a gear that you're comfortable with and make sure it's in that gear. Maybe spin the pedals around a couple of times to make sure it's in there. The next thing you need to do is look at where you're going to lean it against. A lot of people are capable of balancing, but then it means you're thinking about balancing the bike from side to side rather than thinking about getting out the gate. Most racers will either have a fence down the middle or a bar like this one. So if you lean yourself up against that, you know you're in the right gear. The next thing you need to think about is the positioning of your cranks. You need to have your leading foot forward, slightly above horizontal, so that you can, when you're going forward, you can push out the gate and lean forward and put the power through that pedal. If you have it too high, you tend to pull up on the bars and put all your force downwards rather than forwards, trying to push that gear around. So if you set your pedals just above horizontal, you're in the right gear. The next thing you need to do is cover your brakes. That way you can put pressure through your pedal and you're already trying to pull the bike forward, but you're just stopping yourself with your brakes. What you need to think about when you're looking at the start gate is which part of the gate's going to start moving first, rather than waiting for the whole gate to drop for your reaction time to setting off. On this gate, I'd look down at the peg there. The starter sequence will be something like... Pedals ready, go! The second you see anything start to move, you need to send your whole body forwards, you're releasing your brakes, your hips right up against the bars, and the wheel's going to be just off the ground, and your body's going to be pulling forward and out of the gate. As soon as you've got a couple of pedals in, you think about clicking through a few gears and getting good, strong pedals in to get the power and get away to the first jump. If you're not going to be pedalling after the first few pedals because there's an obstacle in the way or a berm that you've got to cruise around, you still need to think about what gear you want to be in after that obstacle, because you're going to have picked speed up, and if you're still in the gear that you set off in, you're going to be spinning, you're not going to be going faster forwards. So let's give it a go.
Dual courses are typically made up of 3 elements: the start, jumps and corners. This is a good example of a bermed corner on a dual course. A berm is actually a man-made banking that helps you keep your speed going around a corner. To ride a berm, you want to enter as the banking starts. You don't really want to be braking. As you come in, you want to start leaning the bike as it naturally wants to go. Your body should be in line with the bike. And then once you get to the apex of the corner, you want to start looking down the track where you want to be going. So you kind of pump the bike away into the corner, and as you come out, you should have maximum speed, and you continue down the course. A few things that you don't actually want to do in a berm is, firstly, you don't want to be too upright. When you're coming around the corner, totally use the banking. To do this, you need to be leant right over and the bike will stay in the corner. You also don't want to be down in the bottom of the berm. So if you're down here, there is no banking that's going to keep you in the corner. You want to be right up here, using it to the maximum effect. Lastly, you need to make sure your pedal's in the right position. When you're coming around the berm, the outside pedal needs to be down and the inside pedal obviously is going to be up. This is so that when your bike is leaning over, your pedal's not going to catch on the berm or anything that's on the ground. And then hopefully you'll have ridden your perfect berm.
In dual racing, the jumps are where you can lose or gain the most amount of time. There's a wide variety of jumps and different ways to ride them.
This is a tabletop. This is a double. This is a triple jump. And this is a speed jump. Just because it's called a jump doesn't mean that's what you have to do to get through the obstacle. There's a variety of ways of riding through it. For example, you could roll through it, and this may not be the quickest way, but it's probably one of the safest. One of the other options on a triple jump is to either roll the first one and jump the last two, or jump the first two and roll the last one. If the triple's like quite large and you can't clear the whole lot, then it's probably best to roll the first one and jump the last two. If, however, there's like a corner immediately afterwards, then you actually want to be on the ground going over the last hump. So use the first two as a double and then roll the last one so you're setting yourself up for the corner. One of the options you might want to take with a jump is to manual through it. As you approach the jump, you want to pull up, keep your weight back. If you do feel yourself going too far back, just dab the back brake and then pump through the jump on your back wheel. Really push back, keep your legs quite straight, keep your weight there because you don't want to start falling forward. If you start doing that, then the front wheel is going to plough into the face of the other jump. That's probably one of the quicker ways of getting through a smaller sort of jump because you're staying on the ground and you're there for the next corner if there's one immediately after it. There's no rules on how you ride a dual course, and it's how good your skills are at the end of the day. There's obviously going to be some contact because there's two people on one track.
I'd say it's non-contact in the same way that basketball's non-contact.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Some guy's trying to get the ball off you. Quick tickle your arse and he's got it, hasn't he, you know?
There is some contact allowed, but not intentional contact.
It's almost impossible to do a really clean overtaking move. There's always going to be some contact.
It's got to be a really harsh manoeuvre before it's going to actually stick, so otherwise you're not going to pull it off. The main tactics really, I suppose, brake checking's a pretty good one. If you're coming into a corner and it's wide open and he's real close behind, if you brake check him, he's on his brakes and he's not thinking about a line, and you can like power away straight away because you knew you were going to do it and he's not ready for it. Or just totally, like if he's gone to the outside, you go inside and then cut him off at the end of the berm and just stuff like that. Berm's an easy place if it's a big wide open berm, but other than that you're just talking about just brute force, aren't you? Like forcing them off a line and stuff like that, I suppose. You can use the jumps as well, you can use the jumps as well, you can use the jumps as well. You can use the jumps as well. Use the jumps as well to like manoeuvre your bike across in the air and land onto their line or real close to them to make them have to brake. That's another way, I guess.
When it's an easy, straightforward course, then you just sort of follow the leader, isn't it?
Just, yeah, I mean, even just the pressure of staying close behind someone can force them into making a mistake.
One of the things that you want to do when you're riding a dual course is practice alternative lines as well, because sometimes the line that you're looking at has been taken up.
Most of the time it's just an instinct thing. You just try something. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. On a more technical course with loads of corners in, the easiest place to pass is always going to be the corner, I would say.
The last corner of a course is always the room for desperate measures.
Yeah.
With or without the bike attached to the person.
Yeah. It's not really something where there's like a textbook of, you know, if he's there, you do that. It's all like instinct thing and split second decisions to what to do and how to get away with things.
You see some of the riders trying to knock the rider in front off with their front wheel, but it's not really going to happen. If you're going to do anything like that, you want to be aiming for a bit further up the bike, because the rider in front's got a lot of weight on that back wheel and your front wheel's a bit too flimsy for that one.
You've just really got to lean back on them. Because if you ever once just let them get away with it, then they'll just do it to you every single time. They'll know they've got you. If you let them get away with it one time, the next time you've got to do something that's really aggressive towards them, just to let them know that, you know, you weren't intimidated by it. You can use sign language.
You can use sign language to make your sort of your mood obvious to everyone else, really. Yeah. And you can undo the quick releases at the start gate and uncouple the brakes, let the tyres down.
Pull the cut the brake hose with a knife.
Yeah.
Stab him in the eye.
So that's that. If you're not ready to rip by now, you never will be. So, get off the sofa and get out and ride.